Mike put in yeoman's work for the better part of 17 years and now enjoys the title of Chairman Emeritus. So good for him. And Mike, always good to see you. It's a day for cohorts. We're going to capitalize on change. That's our theme for the day. In that regard, I'd like to introduce you to, Jason alluded to it, my longtime friend, colleague, client, occasionally partner in crime, Tommy Sutherland, who's going to share with you and us his journey to and through entrepreneurship. So, Tommy, welcome.
Thank you,
It's
George.
good to see you. Glad you're here. Tommy, as soon as the two of us open our mouths, it's apparent we're from East Texas, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So, what part of East Texas are you from, and how did you get to Houston?
Well, not East Texas. If anybody discover from accent, I'm actually from the north of Scotland, a place called Aberdeen. So my journey started, I left school at the age of 15. No qualifications, a desire to work, a desire to make money, which led me into early stage of my career working at grassroots level, working in a warehouse, cable distribution business, cutting cable, and then I was organically went through the ranks into a sales position. How we ended up in America was by, pure opportunity. The company I was working for had actually acquired a business in the States, and that, let's say, acquisition didn't go to plan. So they asked if I could come over on a 6-week secondment to Houston, and then my business journey commenced from there.
So, what were the keys to Houston? Houstonians, either by birth or Houstonians by choice, are awfully fond of talking about the what a fabulous city this is from a business perspective. So, what were the things that resonated with you and made you begin your entrepreneur journey in Houston?
Houston's one, but America certainly for me. So I fall under that umbrella that, the land of opportunity. So when I was young, I would watch TV programs like Dallas, the original one, Dynasty, things like that. So I admired how, the Ewans had made a fortune. And I'd never actually been to America until I came over at the age of 21 on that secondment. So coming from a small town in Scotland and seeing the landmass, the opportunities, it was just a different mindset altogether.
Okay, very good. So, what made you make the leap to entrepreneurship as opposed to a wage earner?
What happened was the company that I was working for, as I mentioned, was going through, I went through an acquisition, and that was when I got my first lesson when it comes to cultural integration. So that didn't go well, purely on adapting different cultures the wrong way, which resulted in a shift in personnel. Then shifted in, the company had inherited a bad debt. So I had pretty much little choice, to be honest with George. I mean, I had a wife who was just came out of her nursing, and I had a young child on the way, a child on the way. So the options I had was either go back to Scotland, where the opportunities were limited, or try and find a way I could stay here in America, and particularly in Houston.
So, what building blocks did you see here that perhaps there might not have been in Scotland or elsewhere in the UK?
I think you've access to a lot more resources here for sure, and professional resources get you there quicker. People who have navigated through the same business cycles that I was looking to endure. So a lot of good support networks here in Houston, certainly overseas, or say back in Scotland, the UK, they're limited than you have here in Houston, Texas.
We pride ourselves with them in a forum of propounding the theory of trusted advisors. Were there trusted advisors that were available to you, something like M&A Forum, and people and personnel that you could plug into?
I mean, back then, when I first started my first business, that was back in 1998. So that's going back, I guess, 20 years ago. So phones, internet wasn't really freely available back then. So I guess when you used to call a lawyer or yourself, it was because there was a problem. You know, you get in touch with an accountant because there's a finance problem. I look at business differently than I did back then, which obviously alludes me to the point that how I look at tapping into advisors is I've had a stream of advisors in different seasons of my life. Most notably, obviously yourself. I've worked with you for 20 years, and that obviously encompasses not just on business, but various other activities. Um, Accountancy. I think a coach is a valuable resource to have. I still have a coach. I've had different ones on my journey. I think I can be valuable to it. And surround yourself with a good, solid network like you've got here. I think that can be underestimated. I've been fortunate enough. I've only been a part of this particular network over a short period of time, but it's been extremely valuable to me.
Very good. We like to talk about having a complete team of professionals in this room, and I know many of your trusted advisors are, in fact, in this room. So appreciate each of you attending. Tell us about your first business. Tell us about UTEX and how that came about.
Well, starting from having a business with no money is a challenge, and then having a child and a wife who wasn't working at that stage. So how I created my wealth, I used Houston as an entry point. So back over in Europe specifically, people obviously seen Texas in particular the entry point for doing business. So I represented them uh, purely on a commission type basis, which gave me enough revenue to start my first business. Grounds route level business, as you well know, with UTEX, the distribution, predominantly oil field. Started from effectively from a house, moved into a small unit, and progressed from there.
So, what were the building blocks? Did you have a concrete business plan? Was your growth serendipitous? Did somebody help guide you in UTEX?
I'll be honest. Back then, I had real no logic to business, to be honest with you. So you could fair to say it was written in the back of a cigarette packet in terms of my channels to market. So a bit of luck, good contacts got me to where I needed to be, but certainly I'm a different place than I was 28 years ago. Building blocks, you're talking specifically people. I mean, that's the whole pillars of a business is getting good people in your business. Certainly the business we're talking about just now, we've had some good, solid, loyal people in that business. So if you can retain your staff, that's very important.
So your businesses have been primarily closely held businesses. You've been in virtually every instance the lead shareholder. Fair?
Yes, my investments are a mixed from hospitality to real estate to rentals to commercial property to industrial supply, but all of them come under my umbrella in terms of the major shareholder.
Have there been times when you've had other equity participation?
Yes, more than one occasion, yes.
What can you share about the differences between being a sole shareholder or the sole member of an LLC and those situations where you had co-owners, if you will, or others that had equity?
I mean, looking back, when you go into these engagements with people in the business, you can only see the rainbow, you know. So you're not really looking at the downside of what can happen in the future. What I will say, I think it's clear when you go into to business with somebody, if it's a minority stake, is be clear in terms of your objective, your alignment on objective and what you're trying to achieve with that business. And that's where things can get muddled. And it depends on what journey that person is in their life. There could be instances there anyway that somebody just looked at as a lifestyle business, whereas you maybe looked at potential exit. So I think it's important that you ensure that you get in line with the objective of the business.
You've run the raft of voting trusts, buy-sell agreements, shareholder agreements in your various businesses. What words of wisdom can you share with this group about the importance, or maybe lack of importance, in having those agreements when you had other participation?
I always say that people dismiss an NDA. I always say it's got teeth. It's got teeth, so it's got some validity to it. So I do ensure that I think it's extremely important from its early engagement in terms of employment contracts, how their compensation is modelled, going back to the outcome, if it's on a short-term strategy, long-term strategy, getting those early engagements with those people, I think it's key. We're all human beings, and within our own right, we can change in terms of our needs and demands. But if you've got something a bit more specific when it comes to contract, then it makes the process less painless, if there's a change or shift in direction. So I could thoroughly encourage to get counsel with obviously your legal team to get those things put in place.
Well, you've been very generous in offering to figuratively open the kimono about some of your experiences in that respect, and so we appreciate it. Can you speak perhaps to other equity and exit events? How do you split the sheets? Any methods that you found best? Any that you found perhaps not best practices? Any regrets with the former partners?
I mean, now I've pretty much got a very creative way that I do deals. Not taking anything away from the people in the room here, but obviously we've been educated on a specific EBITDA formula, and we come to a capital event. So deals like I've done two most recently where I've consulted for equity, and I've got out pretty quick. So that's a deal structure on its own. That was an easy one to do. What was the other question you had related to that one?
Well, I guess we were kind of still visiting about shareholders. Are there paths to distance yourself when you have people who came in on the same page and were decided they wanted to lead different business lives?
Yeah. I had one back in, I guess, early 2000s, and it was a great business opportunity, and it did extremely well. But the unfortunate scenario was that business needed cash to operate. He decided to spend it. So he would spend his money on salmon fishing and first-class tickets around the world, where I was left to fund that business. So, these things do happen even on an upside when a business is working well. And that can be quite painful, exiting a business which is actually doing extremely well. Sometimes we look at from our exiting a business when it's, certainly for this purpose anyway, it's usually a drastic events happened. But that was a tricky one for me. I had a most recent one where I had a property fund where I had minority shareholder in there. 15%, that's all it was. But still, it kind of put me in a roadblock, When you've got 85% of a business, one would think they will override and control There's instances there that's not the case. That then damages cash flow, damages progression, and time and resources to get legal advice.
So let's move away from the equity side and talk. We talked about equity. We talked about professionals building your team. What about the boots on the ground people? What words of wisdom can you share with this group about boots on the ground and hiring key people?
Well, I recommend, well, it depends what level you're looking at, but certainly for high level, high level, mid level, encourage you to, it comes with cost, but I do encourage a recruitment company, a good recruitment company. As you well know, when you're interviewing these people on your own, they're the best sales version of themselves. And that can be a costly cost to the business if things don't work out. So finding a good recruitment company who can do that hard work or due diligence to kind of earn out the good and the bad people, that can be powerful. I'm a big believer in using DISC behavior profiles. It's small margin type stuff, but I've found it to be more accurate than inaccurate. And how I use that for employment of people is just to see where they kind of fit on the behavioral matrix and myself or the leader of that team, how they can communicate. That's extremely important. We're all different people and we've all got different communication styles. And I think if you take a time to use those tools, it can put you in a better position in terms of recruiting the right people.
So we have focused on the domestic aspects of your initial business. What impact did the international aspects of that business have on your day-to-day work in the States and your management responsibilities?
Well, over the years, I've maintained business investments here in Houston, but I've got substantial investments overseas, Southeast Asia for one, and back in Scotland. So a part of my career, I've spent quite a considerable amount of time in Singapore. That was my second home for a number of years, and latterly Thailand, and my birth town of Aberdeen, Scotland. So back in 2000, I opened up a business in Singapore. And the reason behind that was purely based on a US need. When I open a business, I'm always looking for value add. And in this occasion, it was in the oil and gas space specifically. But the team was moving over, or teams were moving over to Singapore. That's where the heavy industry was doing. So I kind of maximized the opportunity there. So that was my first investment over there. By doing so, you've obviously got to ensure you've got the right team who's managing your investments here, and you're certainly in Houston at that time. And over the years, I've had a number of M&A activities in Asia and specifically in Scotland as well.
So your career to date can best be defined with a single focus business with local, regional, national, international outlets. Were there any significant events during your ownership of UTEX which you'd like to highlight for the group about red flags or things that they should watch out for in their business growth before we move to the entrepreneur part?
Had horrible theft, which was done smartly done looking back. So that was a tricky one.
Internal theft.
Internal theft. It was when it's your own money, it's not a company's money. It's stealing from me. So you take those things personally. It's my well-earned cash. I won't tell you the amount, but it was significant, to say the least. So it's watching out for these types of red flags. It's the things that surface level stuff with a tendency to look at. It's the things that are hidden away, the blind spots as we call them. It's trying to find these blind spots that you can uncover.
safe to say, as I recall, that trust is a two-way street, right? It's great when you have key people and folks that you can trust. Sometimes that trust doesn't cut both ways, and can get bit. To your point about blind spots, I think that was an area that you identified strongly at the time.
Yeah, I mean, they're called blind spots for a reason. But it's certainly our job to try and navigate through those ones in particular anyway, and try and avoid the blind spots.
And particularly when you're in growth mode, you're spending so much time raising capital, growing the business, making entrees into new markets.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've had more success than losses, but I had my fair share of losses in business. So I'm not sitting here on a pedestal saying it's been a journey to say the least. Business is not flat lined. So a tendency to, you always hear somebody who's playing poker, they're always telling you how much they've won. They never actually told you how much they've lost.
Amen. Amen. So before we morph to the kind of new phase, Tommy Sutherland Holdings and part two, our panel talked about agents of change. Are there agents of change or issues that you're seeing in the present market that are impactful of your traditional business model?
I've got a different outlook than maybe most. Maybe a bit more positive than negative or pessimistic, to be honest with you. It's just my DNA. When we talk about things like tariffs, I look at it as an opportunity. I don't look at it as a distraction. So I think there's a lot to be taken in terms of opportunities arise when people are talking about the negative stuff. So I think one thing we can't dismiss in terms of Texas, entry markets is amazing. Loads of opportunity and a whole mix amount of business. We talk about tech, with aerospace, talk about LNG, traditional oil and gas, to name a few, data centers. So sometimes I think when we're sitting in this city, we don't realize the opportunities we've currently got. Back in Scotland, if I make a comparison, I was from Aberdeen. That place is a shadow of itself back in its boom, like most cities are in Europe. I hate for it to say, United Kingdom in one. I mean, it's not a nice place to visit. It's lost its values. It's lost a lot of its industry. So be mindful that we're in a good place over here, and a lot of people want to be in this market. So use that as a leverage point in terms of your networking. That you're in a formidable place, that if you can help a company and earn from it to get them an entry point in Texas, then I think that's a good place to be.
So a good vote of confidence for the Petro Metro, right, for Houston, Texas. And we used to have the big three, right? Calgary and Houston and Aberdeen. So what's the red flag that we need to watch out for here, that your takeaway from the decline of Aberdeen?
Well, that was oil and gas centric. My businesses are kind of mixed, but if we're using that as a comparison anyway, is the shift in renewables. I think Europe, certainly in my opinion, I'm not a politician or geopolitician, but I think they've certainly went a little bit too fast on that stuff, and it's killed the economy, which is unfortunate. So just be mindful anyway. You need to be versatile and nimble in your approach to business. Find alternative income streams from different businesses. Certainly the ones I'm currently looking at just now. I won't share with you all my M&A secrets or acquisition secrets, but there's a lot of space there on critical infrastructure here in America, as you will know, or in Texas, data centers, things like that.
Okay, so chapter two, right? That was your traditional business model. Now in a second phase of your business career, you've adopted a specific mergers and acquisitions focus and acquisitions driven business model. So you talked about some of your transactions being formulaic, very numbers driven. what are the things that you look for once you get past your initial checklist as potential red flags or issues that you could share with the group?
Well, as I mentioned, a key driver, certainly for my M&A activity, is building rapport with people. You can't dismiss the people connection. If you go in there surface level and you can look and you can cover some of these things we talked about in terms of EBITDA performance, adjustments, where's money gone, the guy might have a holiday home here and a nice car here. That's surface level stuff, you can pick that up. It's when you get to know that person who's selling the business is important. A couple of red flags, which unfortunate situations, but I did find out is based on rapport. There was one specific company that were early stage engagement. We were converting that into an agreement. He had some health issues, disability issues, operation, he wanted to get out. But little did he tell me that he was going through divorce at the same stage. So that's quite common. So be mindful of that. That has actually happened more than once. I had one in pre-COVID and the West Coast, I won't specific with the state. Again, guy had left his wife. His wife was a signatory in the business, which delayed the sale of that business. Most recent one I've got just now is there's 3 partners, and one of them was a little bit older, he was 72. We were told he was just out of the business, but he was obviously a major shareholder. We believed he had a buy into the exit. Little did they share with us that there was some friction within the business. So my point being anyway is if you look at the surface level stuff, the finance, it's important, but you need to build rapport with that particular person who's selling the business or their team to uncover some of these issues that could delay the purchase or the sale of that business.
So does your due diligence model include meeting with all the key decision makers and seeing them in their homes or in their businesses?
I frame my business a different way, and just for the audience, I did some, in my early stages, I was in my 30s, I was a part of the YPO. Some of you know that. I was surrounded by a lot of smart private equity people, but they did business a different way that didn't really resonate with me. Equally, I was part of a number of deals over the last few years where I've been pulled in as maybe an expert or a part of something to get across the line, and that was private equity driven. So when I go into a particular deal, I put my owner operator lens on and then I reverse it, because obviously I've done it from grassroots level. I've started a business with nothing. I've made multiple capital events. I've been a operator, owner, growth. I've been in every phase of business. So when I'm talking to these particular owners, I can understand what they're going through. And I don't even have to come to a point. I don't even get into discussion number 1, what their EBITDA is. I would say getting to know that person, building that rapport, what's motivating them, why they want to exit the business, get a backstory to that. That engagement will take me to a point that anyway that I can actually meet their needs and re-engineer what they want. My goal is never to try and get their business on the cheap. It's got to be a fair result that both companies win, or so 2 individuals win. And if we can hit those milestones together, then everybody's happy.
It's kind of a unique perspective, right? Win-win from both a buyer and a seller perspective. So it sounds like a good path to closing some transactions.
We've all got expectations in terms of the price of a business. And there's obviously an argument there, can you meet halfway? You can put specific milestones that can be hit so they can retain that value. So it's got to be two-sided. And you can always caveat an upside to it. And I structure my deals round that way. I don't do a part ownership. I've learned that. I go in as 100% buyer of the business. I retain their legacy. That's my intention, because that is a very delicate point with business owners over here. Certainly the space that I play in. If you're dealing in the SME space, companies who could be, less than $1 million EBITDA, up to 5, it's like putting a price and selling their baby, There's no price to it. So you have to be mindful of that. And then secondly, they've got this price point in their mind that's worth something. So I use that as a placeholder, put it there, and try and get to that point.
Okay, very good. So describe to the audience kind of the new path, the second chapter, if you will, in your business ventures. What are you looking for now? Where are you concentrating? Who and what are good resources to facilitate that search?
Yeah. So the past 3 years, I've been pretty much in a stagnant phase in my life. I've been actively working, but I've been kind of just taking a pause and things. So I've did a couple of, as I say, private equity deals, got involved in a little bit of business coaching. What led me to do what I was doing is pretty much what I'd mentioned to you before, seeing how that private equity model worked for them, but didn't really resonate well with me. So I decided to set up my own fund, which is Sutherland Holdings here in Houston, Texas. It's a family investment fund, and it's focused on acquiring small, medium enterprises business in the industrial electrical space. Could be distribution business or in the service business. We've got capital deploy. We're in early engagement with this business here, but that's our focus point here in Texas.
You mentioned that having so many fingers in so many pots, you still take time to mentor other entrepreneurs. What drove you to spend some of your hard-earned away time helping other entrepreneurs?
I'm in a stage in my life that I work because I enjoy working, and that's a good, powerful place to be. I do enjoy what I'm doing, and there's a lot of things that mistakes I've made over my career, and if I can share some insights with somebody that they can maybe either recover quickly or don't do the same mistakes. So it's a kind of giving back. I've worked with a couple of universities by doing that, helping specifically on some of their thesis in terms of their business plans, which has been quite enjoyable for me. And I have a couple of individuals there anyway who are maybe navigating through business. So I actually enjoy doing it. It's not something I charge for. It's just something there I can feel I can give back to a younger generation.
Okay, very good. So, one of the themes we're talking about today is the change element. So you're riding high, things are good, base business, new business. Looking ahead, what words of wisdom can you share with the group how to prepare for prospective change when things are going well at the present time?
Yeah, as I mentioned, business isn't a flat line. Business is a strategic sport. And with sport, you need to learn how to read the scoreboard. That's important. Some people can't read the scoreboard. When I mean the scoreboard, I mean in financials. So get a handle of that, and that'll allow you to navigate quickly, efficiently, without error. If you can be mindful and be in a position there anyway that you've got the financial element, but you've also got support network, which you mentioned before, legal counsel, good solid accountancy, that should put you in a better position for either growth or to avoid some of these challenges in business.
Okay, so I'm mindful of everybody's time and your time as well. We're going to leave a little bit of time for questions, but what's next for Tommy, Sutherland Holdings, UTEX? Tell us what's next up for you.
Well, I continue with my property investment business here in the city. We build luxury homes in Gardner's Oak Forest, so that's still a big driver for us here. going through the process of scaling the flagship business, which is UTEX. That's the one I originally founded 28 years ago. Recruitment drive, growth, investment of capital. Sutherland Holdings is in a position there to acquire businesses to bolt onto that specific business. So that's a key critical driver for me in Houston, Texas, and align that with my overseas investments. Built my first home in Thailand, Koh Samui. If anybody's ever watched that TV program, White Lotus. So anyway, that was something we started doing 2 years ago, and we continue to evolve in our real estate space. So there's a mismatch of real estate investments, scale growth, build outs here in the local community, and scaling the flagship business through acquisition here in Texas.
Sounds like a trip you need to take your domestic lawyer on as well. So just saying, right? 10, 20 plus years. You mentioned as we prepared for this, anecdotally, we were trying to figure out how long